Hey there, welcome back to another episode. In this one, I'm going to be talking about how I fixed some engineering mistakes, tested out some weathering and ballasting, and finally finished up the track work for the busy Union Station. Let's get started. So I've had to make some changes to the elevations on the track plan. So this area here represents something called the Bathurst Fly Under, which is prototypical to the Toronto Union Station. This was originally 4.5%. I foolishly felt that that was going to be manageable. Adding Aldershot taught me that a 2.5% grade is wonderful and anything steeper is going to become problematic. So I have spent the better part of the afternoon reshaping and regrading this so that it starts earlier than later, and it's now at about 3.25 to 3.5%. This is far more acceptable. The big challenge with this is that you can see that as my equipment now ascends through the grade, and this represents the top plate, that there is basically zero clearance for everything to move through. And you can see with the observation car, we've got about 1 scale foot of clearance. So now I'm going to have to work on trying to figure out a way to carve this back or set it back or elevate it so that I have enough room. To get the clearance I needed, I decided to router the upper deck and make it thinner. I was able to reduce its thickness to a single layer of veneer. I installed the deck and even designed and 3D printed a portal that not only disguises the thickness of the plywood, but does a pretty good job of mimicking the prototype. The portal turned out great, and it really helps to disguise the thickness of that upper plate. I've screw nailed the entire upper deck into place, and I was just getting ready to start gluing down the roadbed when I realized that I haven't painted the track inside the tunnel. I'm going to have to tear this all up. One thing I had totally forgotten about was painting and ballasting the track inside the tunnel, so I had to quickly come up with a plan. I did a test run on a small section of leftover track and decided to use rattle cans for painting because it's just so much quicker. I'm happy with the rails and the ties, but I'm going to need to experiment with different colors and materials for the vegetation because I want something that looks more abandoned and desolate. So I am working on forever installing road beds. Shout out to all those Cato Unitrack people out there that had the good sense to do an all-in-one solution, road bed and track and flawless running. But here we are. I just wanted to mention that, as you recall, I thinned out this fly under so that the trains had enough clearance. I'm also going to want to think about trying to make this a little stiffer. It's very thin and quite flexible. And it was spongy. There was a lot of great suggestions from people. I elected to just simply glue down some brown paper. It's actually paper that was used during construction to cover up your floors so the construction workers don't wreck it. Anyway, a bunch of white glue, put this down, coated it with white glue, and this thing is like a drum.
Before laying down the last of the road bed, I sealed up gaps so that the ballast and scenic materials didn't fall through to the floor. This took some time, but it was well worth it to prevent any issues down the line. As for the turnouts, I used Fast Track's jigs and installed them as shown in previous videos.
So I just wanted to touch base with a small layout update. I am working on finishing up the last few turnouts and installing the ties. I am waiting on an order of flex track. I have about 12 lengths coming. So until I have that, I can't finish the Bathurst yard. And I'm waiting for all the track work to be done before I put out a next video release. Things are progressing well. I'm really happy with how things are turning out. So in the next week or so, you'll hear from me again.
Unfortunately, I ran into some trouble with two of the switch machines. I wouldn't be able to install them on the underside of the table. The servo on the west side of the layout was now directly over top of the staging tracks, and I had adjusted the turnouts in the Bathurst yard, and now one of the throw bars was directly over top of the support beam, and I couldn't remove it. I had to come up with a creative solution and ended up temporarily mounting the servos on the upper deck, attaching a sprung section of piano wire between the throw bar and the actuator arm. After 6 months of work, I'm finally able to rail fan passenger trains as they run through the fly under, the Bathurst yard, and Union Station. The Bathurst fly under was one of the most important features I wanted to model, and I'm really happy with how it mimics the high volume of traffic, just like the prototype. This is currently my favorite feature of the railroad. I had originally been scheduled to host our local train club meeting during the pandemic, but it was rescheduled, and that became a real driving motivator to get as much done as I have. The meeting was a lot of fun, and I got some great feedback from the club members. It's been a relief to finally get this stage of the layout done. Now that the track work is complete, I still need to finish up the wiring and test each of the turnouts. Each of them requires some minor adjustments as I test different equipment. It took me 6 months to get to this point, so I'm really eager to start working on some scenic details. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.